We gonna do our notables and stuff first?
No, because this isn't a normal episode.
Fair enough.
And there'll be time for it on Monday.
Who knows when this is gonna start? So, all right, 5 seconds ago. Welcome everybody. We're here in a special live stream to talk to you about Captain Marvel and our review. Well, my review because he hadn't seen it.
Right. I'm just going to interject my thoughts about what I've read and what he's told me and what other people have told me. And
he looks all this up first and whatever. But before
I didn't do it with Avengers last year, so and I won't be doing it with Avengers this year.
Well, Avengers is different. That's the movie we've been waiting on for a long time.
20 years or 12 years, something like that.
Dude, I've heard so many people talk about Shazam that everybody has seen it. Anyways, before we jump into Captain Marvel, we want to talk about a controversy that's brewing across the YouTubes about Ant-Man versus Thanos. Lewis, go.
Okay. Weird. So weird. It's the internet, though, so it shouldn't surprise me, but it does. Like, why do people care? Like, I don't get it. Why does it have to be so gross? Why does it have to be so disgusting? Why do you have to implicate Ant-Man as a killer? Thief? Yes. Killer? No, he doesn't strike me like that. Another company.
Hold on a second. Your video's a little behind.
Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, another company, I won't name them, but they have something to do with this right here. Did a similar story where a certain shrinking hero took out a big bad villain, but he didn't do it the way they're describing on the videos I've seen on YouTube about Ant-Man. Marvel, please don't do that. Please don't ever think that's a good idea.
I don't think that I don't think Marvel ever had any intention to do it. I think it was the internet that had the intention for him to do it.
You should be ashamed of yourself, internet.
Hey guys, if you just joined us, welcome. We're going to be doing a Captain Marvel review. I did not change the name to this video. So
what did you have it for?
I don't know. It's always whatever the last thing was.
Oh.
Keep talking, I'll change it.
Oh yeah. So anyway, I'm embarrassed to be a comic book fan and a movie fan when these are the conversations that we're having in public. Like, it's one thing to make a joke to your friend.
There we go.
You know, on your own time. It's another to sit down and say, this will make a good video. And then have hundreds of thousands of people sitting down to watch it.
Yeah, well, I at least admire the idea of speculating.
Sure, we do that all the time here.
Because I've always thought, like, Ant-Man and the Atom were a lot more powerful than we think they are, because they could always just grow, to the size of a skyscraper and kill somebody from the inside.
Right.
But then they wouldn't even have to do that. Like, they could just go inside and mess stuff up.
Punch organs.
So, like, and they have the density of who knows what at that size.
Well, Adam only retains his full strength. So while he's small, he's not really super powered. I mean, he's just got the normal strength he would have anyway.
Yeah.
Which, when you compact it, I mean, that is pretty serious, but it's not Superman level strength or anything.
Well, sure, but he's so dense. If he hits, it's going to hit a lot more.
Right. That's sort of the angle they went with Ant-Man, especially.
Yeah.
I liked it. I'm not opposed to it. I'm just saying, like,
well, that's just science.
Yeah,
where it contradicts with comic books, but yeah. So I think that's really interesting. I don't think it works well for a movie, especially Ant-Man, who's supposed to be such a silly, goofy character, anyways.
Right. So if it were Hank Pym, I could see some internal stuff going on. And I'll tell you who's to blame for this ultimately. Jeff Johns. And you're like, Jeff Johns? What are you talking about? Well, he had this one issue where, or he wrote a couple issues of Avengers back before Bendis took over and did the Disassembled, which led into the House of M and all that stuff. And he apparently had Hank Pym and the Wasp enjoying their marital relations, and he was utilizing his powers for that purpose. That's as far as I care to describe it, because I was a little creeped out when I read it that was a thing, and I was like, oh my goodness. But Jeff Johns was the writer at that point.
Yeah. But yeah, I feel like it might work for somebody like Deadpool if he somehow got that power.
Right.
It just makes sense for the character, but I don't think it really makes sense for the other characters, because they don't kill people. Like, they're heroes. So, anyways. So, we just wanted to throw that out there, our opinion, our thoughts on the matter. You know, I don't know that it's, I mean, and I guess maybe one last thing we'd say is, if Thanos ever thought something would happen and he had the Infinity Gauntlet, like, he could snap his finger and it'd be over. Like, Ant-Man would be gone.
Right. I mean, you saw what he did with Star-Lord's weapons and stuff, right?
And
you saw what he did with
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right, yeah. He just wrecked shop. He altered reality, and they stood no chance. So, I mean, he could easily do that to Ant-Man.
Right. So, yeah, I don't see why it's a thing. It's funny to talk about, I guess, but, you know, that's about the extent of it, where I would have.
See, when you told me that there was a controversy, I thought people were like clowning on Ant-Man being involved in the fight against Thanos, and I'm like,
I may have misspoke with the word controversy. That was in my haste.
I know.
That's the first word that came to mind. Discussion.
Well, but I'm saying, like, the issue with Ant-Man and Thanos. I mean, if you had just framed it like that, I still would have thought, you know, he's talking about the fact that Ant-Man is not mega powerful, so how is he going to go up against Thanos, right? Like, that's what I was thinking you were suggesting. I had no idea that there were these crazy theories about how he was going to manage to fight against him in the Endgame movie. So.
Right. But there's some pretty funny memes out there about it.
I know. I saw a couple. Thanos was looking like this.
Anyways, all right. The main
Somebody's got ants in his pants.
Moving on to Captain Marvel. So I will say I really enjoyed Captain Marvel a lot more than I thought I would. Now, let me preface that there's a lot of things I didn't like about the movie, but I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. I knew that they would make a funny movie that was about like any of the others. It's better than Thor 2. It's better than Iron Man 3, you know, which I kind of enjoyed.
And Iron Man 2.
And Iron Man 2, yeah. It's better than that. I mean, it's got a solid story. Samuel L. Jackson is hilarious. He's great. It was awesome to see Coulson again. I didn't have a lot of problems with Brie Larson. Honestly, if she hadn't said all the dumb things she said around the movie, I wouldn't have any problem. Like, I would have had no problem watching the movie, or no hesitation, I guess, and I would have really enjoyed it, I thought. I still would have some of the problems that I have with the movie. But, I really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was a good movie. I still don't think the character deserves a good movie. I'll put it this way. If if they wrote the character in the comic books the way they wrote her in the movie, she would be a great character. But unfortunately, they haven't done anything with her of any interest in the comic books ever. So why would I want to watch a movie about her? That's where I've been.
The last time I read a comic with her in it was that was it the Civil War II, right? Like you lent me that where Hawkeye killed Bruce Banner, and she was in that, right?
Yeah,
she was the
main.
And so she was on the opposite side this time, and it's like, well, if I don't like you before, I'm not going to like you now, because you're wrong.
Right.
And so it's like I don't have a problem necessarily with the character, but the appearance of the few issues I've read of her recently have been lackluster.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever read a comic book that I enjoyed her character in. But I haven't read some of the old stuff.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
I imagine I probably would enjoy the Miss Marvel Carol Danvers.
Yeah.
Because I think like there was a time where she was a pretty decent character, even though she was a C-lister.
She was popular in the Avengers and in the artwork for the 80s Avengers versus Justice League series that they were writing. Yeah. George Perez did some nice artwork where she's lined up with Wonder Woman. So, I mean, for a while they thought of the character as someone who could be on par with Wonder Woman. So it's not too strange that they've gone ahead and injected her in that spot. Right. The only issue is the way that they've gone about doing it.
Yeah. Well, let's get into some of the criticisms about the movie.
Sure.
I'd say the biggest one for me was what Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
I really didn't like that they didn't have the classic Captain Marvel in the movie at all. They had some lady.
No.
Well, she's supposed to be Captain Marvel.
Oh, I'm just going to say, though, she's not just some lady. She's a famous actress, Annette Bening. So I feel like the casting here is spot on in the way, in a similar way. You wouldn't expect her to be cast in this role, kind of like Julie Andrews in Aquaman. So I think in that regard, it was I thought that was kind of neat that they chose this sort of well-known older actress to play that role. So that's all I was going to say. So.
Yeah, I didn't feel like the character that they had did justice to Captain Marvel.
No.
Like, this dude had been in the comics for a long time. Like, anybody who takes the name Captain Marvel after Captain Marvel, it's a big deal to carry on that name, because I have high respect for the Billy Batson Captain Marvel, and then when Captain Marvel came into the comics, this guy was kind of an honorable guy. And I can kind of see that they were trying to do some of that aspect with her character, but like his death, because I think he died of cancer, if I'm not mistaken.
Ultimately, yes.
And it's just like a huge impact in the comic books, and just a big thing going on, because I think that was one of the most normal deaths that had happened up to that point.
It was. It rocked the entire Marvel universe.
They're like, whoa, like these guys can die of normal things. And,
there's a great article I read about that today that showed some of the artwork, and like Spider-Man was breaking down. He's like, we're superheroes. This is not how we die. And I was like, dude, that's good writing. Jim Starlin, the guy who, made Thanos who he is, and the Infinity Gauntlet and stuff. Silver Surfer, a big household name. He's the guy who wrote that too, and it's good read. So
I just felt like, because of how great the character was, like for them to kind of, it was kind of it really to me felt like a throwaway character. Like,
right.
Barely in the movie, didn't really have a lot of importance. Her death really didn't feel or mean anything to me. It's like, oh, well, she died protecting these random aliens. Like, I guess that's heroic, but still.
I mean, you understand they gotta condense the story, right?
Well, sure.
We've seen this over and over again in the movies. Little tweaks here and there. I mean, it makes sense that they would change her to a woman so that they avoid the romantic angle that Carol Danvers and Mar-Vell had in the comics. So, I mean, that kind of thing.
I mean, it's easy to avoid when you just have him older, be a mentor.
Well, that's true. That's true.
Kind of like a Wildcat figure to Black Canary, something like that.
Okay, I was like, Wildcat? Who are you talking about?
Jumping to DC there, because DC has great characters.
They do. They do.
So,
man, how awesome would it be if they had him in the Birds of Prey movie?
That would be so good, man.
Yeah, that'd be so great. Awesome. Anyway, sorry, I don't want to get too far off.
You're fine. You're fine. I was disappointed with Captain Mar-Vell. I mean, I guess technically they still could have like the regular Captain Mar-Vell, but the way that she acted in the way the character's story portrayed, there wasn't really a passing on
right.
the mantle. I mean, they sort of did, but it was very indirect.
Right.
Whereas, I feel like it was a lot more direct in the comics because they were, close friends, fought together. And then when he dies, like, it's a big thing for her to take up his mantle.
Right. Because she wasn't there when he died.
Right. It's kind of like Wally West taking up the Flash, like from Barry Allen. It's a big deal. And in this way, like, she takes it up barely having known the character. I mean, she kind of knew her from her non-memory. Like, she lost the memory of her completely, pretty much.
Right.
And so, yeah, I was disappointed with that. We'll just end it there.
Here's a question real quick before we move on. Do they give any hint that Mar-Vell was a hero, like that did the hero thing, or was it literally just, oh, I work for the Kree, but I'm trying to help these people not die?
Yeah, there was no aspect that she was a hero. It just she did a heroic thing.
Right.
She was trying to end a war. That was it.
All right.
So kind of in secret. And yeah, again, that's one of the things that I was, disappointed about in that. But anyways, moving on. Another complaint that I had was with the cat and Samuel L. Jackson's character. Nick Fury. I don't know why I didn't just say Nick Fury. Let me just say, Nick Fury is hilarious.
Samuel L. Jackson. You have to say Samuel L. Jackson.
That's right.
I'm Sam Jackson.
Sammy J. I love his character in this. He's so good in this. The only complaint I had with that is the relationship he had with the cat. At the beginning, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, why would he suddenly be so enthralled by a cat? And you saw it in the commercial. When I saw it in the commercial, I was like, seriously? Like, surely something goes on. No, he walks up, he finds a random cat, and is suddenly enthralled by it for like a whole minute. I'm like, dude, you're trying to sneak around a base. Like, what are you worrying about a stupid cat for?
See, I'm wondering if they weren't just trying to telegraph or foreshadow what was coming, and just did it in such a heavy-handed way.
I mean, I liked the bond with him and the cat. I thought that was funny, and when you find out that it's not a cat. Truly, it was really good. Spoiler. Really, we should put spoilers to the whole thing. Yeah, I was just at the beginning, like how enthralled he is with a stupid cat in the middle of espionage. They're trying to sneak in and sneak out, and suddenly he's taking a whole minute just to swim with the cat. That's not very experienced spy kind of thing,
right.
But
is he part of SHIELD yet, or is that even a thing?
He's part of SHIELD.
Okay.
So, because the Shield was started right after Captain America died,
right,
or was frozen, assumed dead.
I wasn't sure if he was in Shield to start with, or because of this movie he becomes a part of Shield.
No, he's in Shield before, and
Okay.
Coulson's like a brand new agent. It's pretty sweet.
I just love Phil Coulson. I just think he's
a fun
such an amazing character. The guy who does it had his name on the tip of my tongue, but now it's gone.
He's great. He's great.
He's awesome. I enjoyed him on this stupid sitcom, The New Adventures of Old Christine or something like that, where he had married a new woman whose name was Christine, and his ex-wife was named Christine, and he's just a funny guy. I'm so glad that he's such an important part. And you mentioned something, and I'm gonna say it.
Well, I was gonna say.
Okay, please, you say it.
I want a movie or TV series or something with that's like an 80s detective team up or duo with Coulson and Fury, because that would be hilarious. It would be so good. It'd be so good.
We could get at least 3 movies out of these guys that is set, after this movie, but before Avengers, and it would be golden.
It would be so good. And if you kept this tone, it might end up like a Rush Hour movie or something like that,
or Lethal Weapon.
It'd be so good. It'd be so good. Anything to make these two guys do. And honestly, Samuel Jackson really looked younger in this movie.
Well, they digitally de-aged him.
Oh, okay. So I'm sure that costs a lot, but
he looks
probably just costs a lot to have him in the whole movie.
That's very true. So they made him look like he did in the 90s. It's great. It's great.
So, another complaint that I had was I didn't feel like Ronan would be afraid of Captain Marvel. I don't know that he. I mean, I feel like he probably just made a strategic escape.
Right.
When she blew up one of his ships by herself. But still, like, this guy has, like, grabbed an Infinity Gem and put it on his hammer. I don't think he's afraid of a small Captain Marvel. Like,
did he have the gem there?
No.
Okay.
So, it just looked like it wasn't that he was necessarily terrified or anything, but I don't know, just the way they did that just made me like, I was like, I don't know, like,
did he show any sort of flexing of his muscles in the movie?
He wasn't super present in the movie. He showed up in a hologram a couple times, and at the very end he shows up to destroy Earth.
Right, but then he gets
4 ships.
Right.
And then
I like the actor who plays Ronan. I think he's a good actor. He was on a show called what was it? Pushing Daisies. It was a great detective show, love story kind of thing. He was the main actor.
I just felt like that they could have added just even a few lines and made it feel like he wasn't necessarily afraid of her, but he realized this wasn't the right time, which they kind of alluded to a little bit. He's like, "We'll be back" or something.
Right.
Like when she shows up, it looks like he's like generally afraid. And I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it because I'm a little biased against Captain Marvel in general because of the comic books. But I try not to be super biased negatively toward characters. But that, I don't know, that kind of irked me a little bit.
Right.
But I guess, and me and Lewis had talked about this. Maybe the biggest complaint that we had was the Skrulls being kind of the good guys.
They're not good guys. See, I've told you this 15 times if I told you once. Just because they're victims does not make them good guys.
Right. And when I'm watching this, I'm like, okay, I love the scene when you first like figure out, okay, there's more to the story than that's being told by the Kree. And I never trusted the Kree to begin with because I was like, wait a minute, aren't they villains?
Right.
And, I couldn't remember. But I was pretty sure that was right. But I knew the Skrulls were villains because I knew at least somewhat of the Skrull invasion storyline.
Oh, right, Secret Invasion, yeah.
And so I don't trust either of them. So I knew that there was going to be something in the future where they got backstabbed by the Kree, but I didn't expect them to turn around and make the Skrulls innocent good guys, just trying to save their family. But even still, I'm like, I was expecting the Skrulls to backstab them and actually be just as evil as the Kree, because they are. They're not good guys. And, so I wasn't too happy with that. Lewis, I'll let you talk.
Yeah, so here's the only way that I'll accept this and not have a problem with it, is if they turn around and have like a Fantastic Four movie that introduces Galactus and he goes and eats their current homeworld. And so the remaining Skrulls come back and are like, "You fools led them to us. We're going to destroy you." Like, I know that they're trying to make something of a political statement with warring nations and things like that. At the same time, again, just because they're victims doesn't mean they're heroes.
Or innocent.
And I get the enemy of my enemy is my friend, sort of.
Well, if they had played that, like, we're still enemies, but we can fight for a common cause. And I would be even okay with her, like, saving their families, but still saying, hey, you're not the good guys here. Like, there's a fine line between us still. We're not the same.
Or at the very least, we get, the Super Skrull and Pybok, the Power Skrull. I like those guys as villains. I think they work really well. So, I mean, as long as we get some version of evil Skrulls, I'm okay with that. Like, my heart goes out to folks who are displaced because of war and that sort of thing. I'm not heartless, but at the same time, I have invested interest in the way these characters get displayed and portrayed on screen. And the guy who plays Talos, he looks like a great actor. I love the Pulp Fiction throwback scenes and stuff. Like, they do great work with that.
Well, and I'm okay with because he said that he's killed people. He's like, I've done bad things. He said that in the movie,
right?
So I'm, I thought it was a really interesting take. Like, this, one of the things he's fighting for is his family. Yeah. I thought that was a really interesting take in that, there's a lot of things that go on in the war, and but I still like in comic books, heroes and superheroes, I like a good clear line between good and evil.
I will say, though, the twist was well played.
Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense until you see the whole movie, and then when that twist happens, you're like, oh, all of this really makes sense now. Right. I mean, they did that really well.
This isn't Iron Man 3. I want my money back. How dare you do this to, my favorite character? Because, again, there's room for pushing the Skrulls into that position where they, soup up one of their guys to fight against Earth's heroes, or maybe there's a couple or a Splinter Cell somewhere that wants to return to the glory days of the Skrulls, where the Kree couldn't punk them and they didn't have to flee and seek refuge somewhere else, and we still get the Skrulls that we want. So, because there was only 4, right?
What?
4 Skrulls, right? Like the Earth.
There were only 4 that we saw on Earth.
Right. So I mean,
we still could have a Skrull invasion story.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
So they had some fun with that too, where like there's a scene where Coulson has been transformed.
Oh, really?
It's pretty funny. I mean, I guessed it too. I was like, he's not acting very Coulson-y.
Okay.
Even before, I was like, even before he said something later that gave him away, I was like, wait a minute. That could be a Skrull right there. How do you know that this is not? So I guess that one. It was fun. It was fun. It's a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's not my favorite by any means. It's not Captain America level movie. It's not Avenger level movie, but it's really good. It's a lot of fun. There's a few problems again I had with it, but you know, I've heard people complain about Brie Larson. I thought she did a fine job. She wasn't like what's her name from Wonder Woman? She's not Gal Gadot, but you know, she did a really good job overall. There are a few scenes where, you know, and I'm biased against the character because she's written terribly in the comics. So I try to say like some of my distaste for the character probably spills into the movie a little bit. So I try not to be too harsh. But there's a few scenes that it just kind of irked a little bit about the character herself. But overall, you know, it was a good movie. Enjoy it. It was worth watching. And so, you know, I'll probably get it when it comes out, just like I do all the other Marvel movies. So, I mean, I probably enjoyed it more than I enjoyed Black Panther, I'd say.
Huh.
And I had an argument with one of my friends who loves Captain Marvel. I'm like, no, this character isn't that great. Of course, I hadn't seen the movie yet, but I argued that Black Panther wasn't a great movie. It's all right, but Black Panther is better in Civil War than he is in his own movie, which is saying something. Not the actor's fault. I think the story was just kind of...
Yeah, they're world building, so...
Yeah. But you can do world building and still have a fun, exciting movie. If he had been Black Panther a lot more, it would have been a lot better. But he was just King T'Challa, and I don't know. That just wasn't as interesting to me. So I'm sure people disagree, and that's fine. Some people really love the movie. But to each his own. Some people hated this movie, and I really enjoyed it. So, you know, it's whatever.
2 other things. I liked the way that they resolved Fury's eye issue. You did not.
I did not. No, there's a funny thing where Coulson walks in with a box of eyes. It's hilarious. He's like, here, you can choose from one of these, and there's just a bunch of eyes in there.
No, I like it because it kind of puts a comedic twist on the seriousness of Winter Soldier when Fury is talking about how he lost his eye to a unexpected betrayal or something. And I'm totally cool with that because it doesn't make it this like, because when I heard it in Winter Soldier, didn't we watch that together? Maybe it was me and Jake. I don't know. Anyway.
Maybe.
When I watched it, I was thinking.
A lot of movies with y'all.
That's true. I was thinking, who did it? Like, I want to know what it was about. And I expected it to be this big, overblown thing. And so when I heard that it was this, I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. That's kind of funny.
Yeah. If they hadn't had that overblown scene with him and the cat at the very beginning,
right,
I might have been more okay with it. That really irked me with the cat. I was like, it's just a stupid cat. Like, you know, I knew it was more than just a cat still before anything because, you know, it's got to be. But I don't know. It might, you know, grow on me. We'll see. I did, you know, I did like at the end where he's, you know, joking to Coulson about how great an event it was.
Yeah.
So, you know, It might grow on me.
I also, at the same time, like and dislike the Supreme Intelligence.
Okay.
So I like that the way they did it in the movie, that you see whoever it is you like respect the most related to the Kree. So I thought that was well done. I didn't ask you this off camera, but do they show anybody else speaking to the Supreme Intelligence or just Captain Marvel?
I think she's the only one you see, but it's kind of hinted at. People do. But yeah.
Well, anyway, someone had said, or I read somewhere that Jan-Rog, what's his name? He plays Watson in Sherlock Holmes. I forget what his name is. There's a scene, or there was supposed to be a scene, where he goes and talks to the Supreme Intelligence, and he sees the Supreme Intelligence as himself. I would have liked that.
As himself or as the Supreme Intelligence is?
He would have seen himself. He would have ultimately be talking to himself because he respects himself the most. Right?
That's funny.
I think that would have made it more clear.
Kind of sounds like a Booster Gold kind of thing.
Yeah. But so that's one of, I do like that idea. I think that's really cool. The thing I don't like is that they didn't actually show the comic version of the Supreme Intelligence. Yeah. I like when they do it looks like this, but it's really this. You know what I mean?
There's plenty of time. I'm sure that's going to get a sequel, and so.
Well, that's true. I hadn't considered that.
You know, there's time. Although they haven't brought Beta Ray Bill in, so who knows?
Right.
I'm not bitter.
his weapon is Stormbreaker, dude.
Yeah.
Thor has always had his hammer. Stormbreaker is squarely Beta Ray Bills, so maybe he'll show up. You never know. The end of Endgame, that would be cool, wouldn't it? Because then he could go on to be in
you know what
the
also
Garden.
Be awesome? Adam Warlock showing up, but I doubt either one of them's going to happen.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what would be really funny is if Thanos turned Thor into Frog Thor.
That would be great.
That would be hilarious. Although I would be disappointed that Loki never did it, but it would still be funny.
Because then Rocket would have to carry him around in his hand.
That would be so good. That would be so good.
Pee in his hand. You'd have to pee in his hand.
Oh, that'd be so
give him
fun.
a award or something, right?
Yeah.
The other thing I like, that they got the green costume, and then they upgraded her to the blue and the yellow and the red. I'm a sucker for the costume change thing, because that's what happened with Marvel. He started out with the green and the white, and then when he became a hero, he took on. His costume doesn't look anything like hers, but that's okay. I just mean,
they had a scene where she had the green and white. I was like, dude, that's awesome.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like at some point, she was rocking the green and white. But then like she went to the more colorful one.
Yeah.
And so I like that. It's kind of like, in literature, it symbolizes character growth. It's a simple way to illustrate your character's growth. Yeah. I mean, both of us said, we liked the throwback nature of the movie, having it set in the 90s. I grew up squarely in the 90s. I was a young adolescent in the 90s. So, yeah.
Well, I didn't really care when it was set. What I liked was the 80s detective team-up kind of feel. It was more the feel of it than really the setting.
That's what I'm saying, though.
So when you have those two, teaming up as detectives, it's really funny. There's a scene where Fury is pretty impressed with himself by doing all these like old style spy tricks with like using tape to get a print,
Print
and putting it on the thing, and they go up to another room, and he's like, "Just give me a couple minutes," and she just blasts it open, and he's like, you didn't do that in the other door. You let me do all that when you could have just blown the door open." She's like, "You seem sure of yourself." I was like, "That's too good."
Okay, don't argue that the setting doesn't help.
I'm sure it does. It was good to see a Blockbuster still around.
That does my heart good knowing that. I was talking to somebody about it the other day. I loved as a kid getting to go to the video store, and to pick up a movie and read what it was going to be about on the back of it and say, okay, I've got to rent this.
Dude, there's just like there's no way to get movies these days if it's not online. Like, there's so many movies that Netflix doesn't have that I would be like, man, I wish there was a store somewhere I could just run, grab this, and go watch it. Like, and Redbox, you never know what it's gonna have.
Right.
Like, if
Redbox doesn't allow that.
If it's over a couple of years, they ain't gonna have it.
Right, and you don't have time to sit there and stare at the cover of the box and say, do I really want to rent this, before it's like, do you want to continue? Click yes or no. Well, yes, but I'm not ready to make a decision yet.
Yeah.
I mean, and Friday night used to be, as a kid, my mom would take us to the video store. We had Premiere Video here in Wake Forest.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a great place.
Or a movie gallery in Zebulon, and we would go, and they'd have a deal. You could get 5 movies for 5 nights for like $6 or something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'd have to pay $1.25 or whatever, $2 for one movie. Now, these were, you had to pick from the older movies because the new rentals were always more expensive.
Right.
And I know I'm going on at length. I just want to, because kids today won't understand this.
Yeah.
You had to coordinate with your siblings because there was 5 movies, but there's 2 of you, and you're like, okay, so we each get 2, and then we pick one we both want to see, right? And it was hard, but it was good because you enjoyed great movies over the weekend.
We didn't have that 5 movie deal. We just had 1. And sometimes we might both pick a movie, and that was it. But I loved it. Like, they had video games too. You go rent just about any video game.
That's true. Yeah.
For a couple of days, return it, and
man, at one point
Redbox does it, but they don't have every video game.
Blockbuster used to have it where you could go and rent a video game system.
Yeah.
If you didn't have it.
Well, they used to rent out the VCRs.
That's true.
Before my time. Because when I came around, just about everybody was starting to buy them.
That's true.
So, but I remember like
technology had finally been out long enough that they weren't $400 or $500; they were, $200 or something.
But I remember going to the store and like renting Super Smash Brothers, Melee, and like deleting
Mario Kart.
Deleting the people from. No, I had that one.
Well,
I don't have it anymore. I don't have it anymore. I don't know what happened to it. I'm so sad.
You lent it out and someone didn't return it to you.
I don't know about that. I borrowed GoldenEye from a friend, and anyways, we're way off topic. But we do that sometimes. Was great. If you're new here, we do that all the time.
You have no idea about that.
So yeah, it's it was a fun movie. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of right in the middle for me. Right around where I would put Ant-Man if I were going to rank it. So I liked the second one, Ant-Man, better. And it's probably closer to that one. So, I mean, it's a fun, lighthearted movie. Really good. I mean, I have a lot of complaints, but I always have a lot of complaints just about. So, even when there's nothing to complain about, like Aquaman. So,
yeah.
I didn't feel like there was a need for all the fuss that happened before. Some people were complaining about how it was going to be this, movie focused on like politics and stuff, and then other people were convinced it wasn't. And I mean, it had a little bit of it in there, but it's like, well, I knew it was going to be a pretty straight down the middle movie. Like the MCU, they make a lot of money. They need a movie that doesn't, cast out half of their audience.
Right.
So, they might mention some of the politics, but generally they're just going to focus on the superheroes, which is the way it should be. I don't mind mentioning the politics or even have it in there, but when you're pushing it so hard, an agenda in a movie or a comic book, then you just kind of alienate half your franchise, and unless you can find a way to do it in some unique way that everybody enjoys it, which I don't think the way the Marvel machine is now that they're gonna risk doing something like that. So, it was a good movie. It was good.
A good example of that is the X-Men and how they were like in the 60s. I did a speech on this in my public speaking class one time, but the X-Men in the 60s were like the medicine you sneak in the mashed potatoes and then feed to a dog. So a dog won't take a pill by itself, but if you wrap it in bologna or put it in mashed potatoes or something, they'll lick it up and it'll get in them, right? You take 5 white kids who have these extra powers, and you keep talking about how the world hates and fears them. You know what I mean? And then you sneak in these subtle undertones of racism, and then you can have this. That's exactly what Stan Lee did.
Yeah, that was really good.
Yeah, and it changed the world in some sense. So
yeah.
Anyway,
so I would recommend the movie. It's good. It's fun. A lot of fun. So it's a plus or a thumbs up from me. Again, it's not my favorite, but really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Very lighthearted. Didn't take itself too seriously. Samuel L. Jackson was hilarious the entire movie, which is perfect. So like he's been all this serious character throughout the whole series, but you kind of catch him as a young in this Nick Fury's a young agent in S.H.I.E.L.D., still learning the ropes, finds an alien for the first time. It's great. It's really good. So can't recommend it enough. Really enjoyed the movie. But let me know what you think. If you've seen the movie, have you watched it? Let us know. We'd love to talk with you. Share our thoughts. Do you have any rebuttals to our critiques or things? Me and Lewis don't always agree on these things, and
that's right. I like Flirkin. He doesn't.
So we don't mind having a nice discussion about it. We totally respect what y'all think about the movies, and we just ask the same thing. But let us know if you're new here. Go ahead and subscribe. We'd love for you to join the family officially, and give us a like if you enjoyed the discussion. And we wanted to do this kind of special one for the movie because it was fresh on my mind, and I didn't want to wait too long. And this Monday we're gonna focus more on Detective Comics, so it should be good.
1,000.
And I've got a special cover in here, so should be fun. So let us know. Let us know what you think. Leave us a comment, like, subscribe, and we just want to thank you for watching.
Catch you next time.
Peace.